Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, where we talk with key spokespeople in the logistics industry about topical issues. Hosted by Peter MacLeod, editor of Logistics Business magazine.
Welcome to another special edition of Logistics Business Conversations, recorded in person at the Logistics Business podcast studio. Today's edition is brought to you by GenieGrips and entitled Forklift Future, Safety, Innovation and Logistics. I'm joined today by Louise Inglese. She's the founder and CEO of GenieGrips. Hi Louise, and welcome to Logistics Business Conversations.
Hey Peter, thanks for having me.
Now I have to say, Louise, I'm absolutely excited to be talking to you today because I love talking about forklift trucks and I love talking about safety, and here my two worlds collide. So, if you'll pardon the pun, that is. Now, what are the types of forklift truck incidents, accidents that we're trying to reduce or eliminate?
Well, as we know, forklifts are like the rhinoceros of the factory, and people and forklifts don't mix at all. So it's about keeping people as safe as possible in the warehouse. And the accidents are tip overs, people falling out of the forklift during that, getting crushed, pedestrians being hit by forklifts, products, falling off forks when forks have to stop suddenly. So it's any of those sort of incidents that we try and help avoid.
And so in terms of load slipping, that's what you're here for. You're helping prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Our original product that we produced is our GenieGrips mat, and that's specifically for load slipping. So if you imagine you're moving any steel products around, the steel on steel action is extremely slippery. So there's a very high possibility of an accident if the forklift turns suddenly or stops suddenly, especially if they're working outside.
So what sort of application is that then?
So if you think carrying steel stillages, you think manufacturers of piping, any steel products like that, finished products like engines, all of that. So recently in Australia, we helped Cummins, the diesel engine manufacturers, to work with them as a safe operating procedure. They're not allowed to pick up an engine without having a set of GenieGrips mats on their forks to eliminate any issues of it sliding or damaging and making it as safe as possible.
I have to say, in the world we live in today, a typical example would be when we get into our own passenger cars. Built-in safety is such an intrinsic part of it now. Headlights that switch on when it gets dark. We've got wipers that come on. We've got anti-lock braking. All these built-in systems. But actually, operational safety is a really big issue as well. It's very easy to take our eye off that. And I think visually, GenieGrips means safety is right there in front of your very eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And in reference to all the safety features that are in cars, forklifts are being manufactured more and more with all those safety features. So although we have had a reduction in accidents with forklifts, you're still going to have a little bit of human error in there. Reducing, having the speed reduction on forklifts, all the safety lights, warning lights, all of that, you can have as much of that, but you've still got human error that hits in there.
Yes. I don't think we'll ever eliminate human beings from the supply chain, And I have to say, GenieGrips is probably one of the few products here that isn't boasting AI.
Yeah. Well, our motto is, keep it simple. So we want people to be able to purchase our product, not have to screw anything, attach anything. They just slide on, magnetize on. So keeping it as simple as possible so there's no room for error in the installation of our products.
We talk a lot in the industry about the cost of safety. That works on two sides. First of all, there's the cost of an accident. The financial cost of an accident is considerable. And I know on your website you carry some stats talking about the size of the potential cost of those accidents cumulatively. But there's also a human element to that as well. The human side, the human cost of forklift truck accidents. It's impossible to put that in as a figure, but it really does damage a business.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you've got the financial cost, and I think the average is about $116,000 it costs a business when there's a serious accident. And that's not taking in any of the repercussions for staff, for business owners, and the recovery of any staff if it's been more of a minor incident. And if it ends up being a serious, whether you've had a death there, the repercussions for staff emotionally, and it just takes it to a next level. And like you say, you can never, ever put a price on that. And for those staff to be still working, in that space, and things like PTSD, they're a really real issue that companies and bosses have to look at and deal with on a long-term basis, and it can be up to 5 years or longer.
Google doesn't forget, and let's say that currently it's really hard to recruit into warehousing with the labour shortage. It's global, and if the first result you get on Google for a company that is trying to recruit you is something about a warehouse accident, then that's not going to really help your cause at all.
No. Well, yeah, and like you say, it's a worldwide problem, people being able to recruit staff, and warehousing is, especially after the pandemic, it's like 3 times or 4 times as bad, I think the statistics are, to get warehouse staff.
Forgive me for sort of touting what's known quite well as quite well known as quite a salesy expression. But when people say to you, "Oh, I can't afford to invest in this," you would no doubt say you can't afford not to. But the actual cost of investment in the products that you're promoting is not particularly high.
For example, our loading mirrors, which enable drivers to be able to see when they're loading and unloading trucks. Sure, you could compare that to a camera, but the price of a camera is a lot different to a price of our mirrors. And I think the mirrors are more intrinsic. You're looking forward, you're not looking at a screen, and it's such a simple, easy way to help the drivers know that they can see exactly what's going on.
That replicates their everyday driving experience from their own automobile. I think that's that convergence of technologies really helps in terms of overall awareness around the operation of forklift trucks. The fact that the environment in which people climb out of when they're commuting to work is replicated in the workplace.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I think of GenieGrips, I think of the slip-on protectors on the forks. But you're saying with mirrors as well, provide other safety products too? Yeah,
so our original products were all rubber-based because our parent company is a rubber moulding company, so that's what we specialise in. And so we started with the mats and the cushions and the caps, and the longer you're in the industry, the more issues you see are out there, and customers come to you and say, how can you solve this problem for us? We have this problem. And so we branched out into our loading mirrors, which are an acrylic company, acrylic product. And it's acrylic and plastic, and it's again a simple solution. It comes out of the box, magnets straight onto the mast, and it allows the drivers to see what they're doing when they're loading and unloading trucks. So a lot of the time drivers will have to hang out the side of a truck, which is completely unsafe, not only safety but on a physical level as well, and it gives them this beautiful look of what's going on at the front of the forklift, which has always been the dangerous end of the forklift.
Yeah, the business end, absolutely. Yeah. Sadly, when we talk about interface between a human being and a forklift truck, there's only going to be one winner there.
Yeah,
and we've seen the implications of those collisions. So, are you a great safety campaigner?
Yes.
Passionate about it?
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's everyday things that people can do to make themselves safer. And when you have a product that you know you have to use on a day-to-day basis to provide simple solutions, it's a no-brainer for us. And we love a challenge. And we love it when customers give us feedback and say, this is now what we're challenged with. How can you fix that? So our GenieGrips caps completely came out because the customer said, we love your mats, but we don't actually need the product protection on the top of our tines. We need it on the tip of our tines because that's where we're damaging all our product. So that's how it came about. And because we manufacture the products ourselves and we're a small family business, we can pivot quite quickly to brainstorm and come up with something and come up with a solution.
And are your customers OEMs or end users?
Bit of both. It's probably about 50-50 OEMs and end users. So we'll find that we'll get a customer because they've had an incident and they're looking for a solution. But then we also get customers because they've got very proactive OH&S managers and they're always on the lookout for something that's going to stop anything from happening. And then the OEMs, I do find it's the end users going to them saying, can you find a solution for us? So, yeah.
And initially the ROI comes from damage prevention.
Yeah. Well, originally that's how the product started. I was at a networking event and someone said to me, we deal with stainless steel and it gets scratched all the time from the fork tines. You wouldn't happen to make rubber mats that go on there. So I said, we don't, but we will. And that's how we started our first product. So we love that we get ideas from customers and then we can go bang and go for it and help them solve a problem.
And is that how product development works? You know, you're not producing products to push on to the customers. You're actually listening to customers who have a need and then you're creating a solution to solve that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And we love a good challenge. And because we all come from an engineering background, we love being able to solve someone's problem and come up with a really simple solution for them. And it is about simplicity and keeping it as inexpensive as possible, because at the end of the day, it's the bottom line that businesses have to look at. And we do find that say we've gone and done a demonstration at a business and they'll come back and they might say, well, it's a nice to have, not a need to have, until they have an incident. And then they're ringing me and saying, and now it's a need to have, Louise. So it'd be great if they could see that beforehand. But unfortunately, because the bottom dollar is what we're all running businesses, aren't we? So that's what it's all about in the end.
All about the bottom line. So Louise, forgive me if I'm wrong, but are you Melbourne based? Yep. I see a lot of you in Europe.
Yes.
So, you're cracking up the air miles, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
How does a company work? How do you go to market?
So we just started in Australia and we launched the product at an expo in Australia, and we really only had a prototype tool at that stage because we weren't sure what was going to happen with the product. Now, we thought it was a great idea, and everyone that we tested it, we thought it was a great idea, but how do we know that that's going to be across the board? So we launched it at this, and I basically rang the team by lunchtime and said, can you please order production tools? Because I cannot tell you how many people have stopped and said, we need those. They're simple, they're great. You can remove them, you can leave them on, whatever you like. And so that's how we started and then exporting, we kind of fell into that, Peter, because I just started getting emails from the US and from the UK and from Europe saying, where do we get these products? And I said, well, I can send them here from Australia, which was not going to be on a sustainable long term. So that's how we ended up setting up in the US, Europe and the UK. So the US was our first market, yeah.
So you keep stock in those markets?
Yeah, so we've got 3PLs in the US, Europe and UK. And we did our first expo in the US in 2016 and set up the warehouse then. And so they were our first market that we went into, and they're still our strongest.
And so the nature of the product suggests that there's no service element required. It's a supply only.
Yeah.
And thereafter topping up or replacing.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you quite a broad opportunity.
Yeah.
To reach. We have a global audience. You can reach global markets.
Exactly.
It's a question of spreading the word.
Yeah, that's it. And having a presence in each of those continents gives our customers, feeling good about there's someone there in their space and they're not having to deal with someone all the way in Australia.
So, Louise, we're not talking about multi-million-pound investment here in products. We look around some of the trade shows which we visit and we've got all these fancy automation systems. Yours is a very functional and fundamental product. What do you say to people who haven't yet invested in it?
I would say that your return on investment is going to be exceptional, because if you add up what a load costs that you're going to damage or lose or whatever, our products are a great return on investment because they are just not expensive.
And if somebody's not sure about how effective they are, can you point them in the direction of satisfied customers?
Oh, absolutely. So we get great feedback from our customers saying how they've basically eliminated damaged product in the last 12 months. The staff feel safer having the product on. And then, as you know, we made them in bright yellow, so there's an extra safety side to it.
So where's the growth going to come for GenieGrips in the future?
Well, as I said, the US is still our biggest market. So I feel like Europe and the UK, we are still building in. We're getting a lot of movement in South America. Central and South America, and we've got a couple of great distributors down there that are being really proactive. And obviously for us distributors in South America where they speak the language is a bonus for us, because they're not going to come directly to us in Australia. And then the next market that we're getting a lot of inquiries for is the Middle East and North Africa. So that would probably be our next markets that we start investing in.
We said at the top that I love forklift trucks and I love talking about them. Can you a lot of people saying there's possibly the future warehouse won't have forklift trucks in it. What do you think about that?
Well, I can understand why people say that with so much automation that's going on, robotics and all of that. But the average business cannot afford to do those automations and robots and all of that. I think the mum and dad businesses that are out there, they're always going to have a forklift to unload and load, even if it's just trucks. Even if they change and make stuff automated in the warehouse, they're going to have to load it on a truck at some point.
And as well as built-in safety systems, I guess you're a great advocate also for training and operational safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Training is key. And we recently had in Australia, I don't know if you know about this, Peter, we had the Australian Forklift Championships in Sydney. And it was a great event because firstly, it showed the drivers what skills they have, because I think they're quite underappreciated.
Yes.
I know they can have a bad reputation and there are plenty of cowboys out there, as in any industry, but to see the teams and the individuals compete and the skills that they have, and we can never forget, they have exceptionally high KPIs. And if they aren't loading and unloading, it slows the whole warehouse down. So they're such an important part of a business and of the chain, but I don't think that they're really appreciated. So it was so great to be sponsors of this event, to show all their skills, how safe they are, all the training that they put in. Like every 3 years, they have to retest for their license. So it's really important that nobody gets slack with their safety, that everybody keeps it at the front of their minds. And to have events like that where people see how great they are and how skilled they are, I think is really, we're really proud to be sponsors of that event.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. GenieGrips is sponsor of a forklift truck competition. Sounds like the perfect fit.
Yeah.
And I look forward to being invited as media partners to the next one.
Yes.
Need to top up my tan at some point. Louise, it's been a great pleasure talking to you today. Thanks ever so much for joining us. And thanks also to GenieGrips for supporting this edition of the Logistics Business Conversations. Thanks to you, the listener, for joining us today. Wherever you get your podcasts from, please subscribe to Logistics Business Conversations. Make sure the next edition is delivered straight to you as soon as it's released. Until then, it's goodbye from Louise Inglese.
Goodbye. Thanks, Peter.
And it's goodbye from me, Peter MacLeod. Goodbye.